At Campbell. And tonight we'll be dealing with the letter C, and we can spell two words. We can either say corona or we can say COVID-19. One way or the other, we're dealing with the C tonight. The world watches, the Caribbean braces. And tonight we have with us the acting chief. Why at opening my words, I just seem to stumble. So the acting chief medical officer, Dr. Francis Martin, it's good to have you with us.
As usual, it's good to be here.
As always, he's no stranger to the GVN. And we also have in studio Dr. Bert Brathwaite, representing the Sanitary Committee dealing with COVID-19. Dr. Brathwaite?
Thank you.
And we're delighted to sail across the seas and make connection with mainland China, where Grenada's ambassador to China, Abbie David, is joining us via Skype using audio only. Abbie, good evening. Ambassador, good evening. Ambassador David. Abbie? All right, so she was speaking with us 30 seconds ago, so hopefully we will keep in touch with her because she will be an integral part of tonight's program because there has been so much discussion about Grenada's students in China, especially in Wuhan province, where COVID-19, there was the outbreak. Dr. Martin, what is the latest? CARICOM had a big meeting on the weekend. I'm certain that at the local level you had discussions today. What's happening?
Well, I hope at some stage you would get our minister to speak to, because it was really a CARICOM government and policy decision that the region had to take. The reason this has happened is because, as you imagine, the sensitivity regarding how we treat sea travelers and the cruise industry. And as it turns out, our islands were not consistent in the way we manage and treat with the risks on the ship. And so it made... And so it became necessary for CARICOM to quickly engage all stakeholders, including the cruise ship industry, to come to some sort of understanding as how we're going to go forward. Because at the same time, we have to manage the science of COVID together with public expectations and public perception. So it really was important for them to do that, and that was really the crux of the matter of the week, the meeting on Sunday.
Good, we'll get back to that. But I understand that we have Ambassador David on the line. Ambassador Abbie David, good evening again.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now, and thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We understand that it's early o'clock in the morning in China, and you're getting ready to head off to a busy schedule.
Yes. It's 9 a.m. almost here.
Good. So there's been a lot of concern here in Grenada on the ground about Grenadian students studying in China, especially in Wuhan province. What can you tell us at this time?
So first, I'll tell you exactly what is happening in Wuhan, right? So Wuhan is under a full lockdown because of the scale of the outbreak in that location. Of course, it started there. So the consequence of the lockdown is that residents can't leave their domicile, and this creates a challenge to carry out everyday tasks and just to carry out tasks in general. So, for example, residents in Wuhan must have everything delivered to them, including food, water, and any other supplies. And, of course, this becomes a challenge. So with that, this is not everyday life for them, and for some it's more difficult than others. But the point of the lockdown is for safety measures to ensure that the virus actually it's stopped, transmission is eventually stopped. So while there is that challenge, I am happy to say that the students in Wuhan, they're safe at this time, and everyone is in good health in terms of no one has contracted the virus.
There's been a petition making the rounds online with the students campaigning to be brought back to Grenada. How feasible is that?
Well, there are several options available in order to evacuate them from Wuhan, and all the options are on the table. So if that option does become feasible, then the government has all the options available to make the decision.
You mentioned that supplies are being brought in because of the lockdown. Some of the students were concerned that the supplies were low. What's happening here?
Yeah. So in terms of supplies, what happens, like I alluded to briefly, is that they have to have everything delivered. So food, water, because they can't leave their domicile. So students must stay indoors. And then if we have some students that live outside in a community, they also cannot leave their community. So what happens is they have to have everything delivered, and you have millions of residents in the city of Wuhan. So there becomes a challenge of stockpiling goods, such as stockpiling water and stockpiling food. So it becomes a challenge, but I'm in contact with students on almost a daily basis, weekly, you know, for some dealing with the challenges, and I'm ensuring that they have food. So everybody has food, although in the future they are concerned about this.
And how many students do we have in China at the moment?
So we have around 85, give or take, students and residents, because we also have those that come to China and teach.
So you have 85 students in the Wuhan province. How many students are we looking at there?
In China. Okay. So in Wuhan, we have about a dozen, and in China, we have about 85, because we have students all over China itself, and even more here in Beijing, where I am.
Okay, so there are some parents of these students in China, in Wuhan, who are saying, okay, so I've heard you, but tell me bottom line, what is the government's decision regarding my child in China at the moment?
So in terms of the decision is that they're still in school, you know, classes have resumed. In terms of what we're providing to them, we give the students funds on a reoccurring basis to ensure that they have everything that they would need. In terms of their health, you know, I'm ensuring that they are healthy. We're in contact with them. And in terms of evacuation, you know, like I said, all the options are on the table, shall the government make the decision. But I'd also like to mention that no other CARICOM country has evacuated their students. And the embassies here are in close communication, so we all know what's happening with each other, and shall that become an option.
Okay, so let's do devil's advocate now. If I'm a parent, if I have a child in China and I choose and I opt to probably get an airline ticket to take my child home, is that possible? Will that be considered?
So it depends, right? So if you're in Wuhan, that option is not available for them to just go on a flight, right? Because the city is on lockdown. So there isn't an option to just get a commercial seat on a flight, right? What has to be done is either a flight is chartered, they have to follow the evacuation measures, and there are a lot of steps there to remove or evacuate from Wuhan. In terms of other cities in China, schools are in session, right? Most of the classes are back in session now. So students are avidly working to obtain their degree. But should they take that path, if they want to, the option may be available, but each university has different policies.
Is there anything in particular that you would like to say to the Grenadian public at this time, especially the parents of the students in China?
So I would like to say thank you to all the parents, thank you to everyone, all the Grenadians in Grenada praying for us, because, you know, while the students are here, I am also here, and I am also making sure that they are okay. So your prayers and the calls and everything, these things are, I should say, uplifting, you know, and gives us hope, because I say don't panic, because if we panic, it will bring irrationality. So the best thing right now is that you all pray for us and ensure that we are okay. And I will continue to do everything that I can for the students in terms of giving funding and talking to them and working with the universities to ensure that they are okay. Because again, health and safety is the number1 priority. And I'm also glad and hopeful that this comes to an end here in China, because as you can see with the data, what the government has done is actually working, because the numbers have significantly gone down. So continue praying for us, and you know, we accept your call, we accept your prayers, and we will get through this. We're strong.
Ambassador Abbie David, we want to thank you so much for joining us, and we wish you and the Grenadian students and other nationals in China all the best, and we hope that we can keeping in touch with you so that we can get some updates and ensure that people here have a sense of peace and some level of comfort with what's happening with our nationals there. Thank you so much.
Sure, anytime. But I'm glad again to say that they are safe, and safety is a #1 priority. So if they continue to follow the measures, we will get through this.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. We look forward to hearing from you again. If at any point you can join us again before 10 o'clock, feel free to do so.
Okay, I will. Thank you.
So
and have a good night.
Thanks. That was Grenada's ambassador to China, Abbie David, and we thank the ambassador so much. To remind you that in studio with us tonight, the Chief Medical Officer acting, Dr. Francis Martin, and we also have the representative of the Sanitary Committee dealing with COVID-19, Dr. Bert Brathwaite. Dr. Brathwaite, we had heard from Dr. Martin at the start of the program. Tell us about the Sanitary Committee and what is your role?
The Sanitary Committee is a committee that's been in existence for many years. I don't remember exactly when the act was formulated, but probably goes back to the 50s or before that. Right? And as a matter of fact, if you read the act, the terminology in it, you recognize that, how old it is. But it is a very important act because it gives the medical officer, the chief medical officer, the powers to do a number of things that are necessary for public health, especially in the setting of any potential epidemic, etc. So that committee has been reactivated, and I'm just one of the members, and being brought in as one of the minister's representative. And there's also another member who is actually going to be coordinating a lot of the emergency responses, and that's Dr. George Mitchell. And he will coordinate the aspects of many aspects, because I don't know if the public recognize it, but Dr. Martin's hands here would have been full, would have been absolutely full. And so it's an attempt really to reinforce all the elements that are necessary if you are faced with a situation like that. And that's why we are here. I am here, and others are going to be there.
Dr. Brathwaite, when I was a child, I heard about TB, tuberculosis. At GBN, quarantine point is significant for us, for those of us who grew up in Radio Grenada. Quarantine point, as the name suggests, speaks of that quarantine point station area where people were quarantined. You want to tack back on history to take us forward in this situation and probably look at some similarities and put it in the context of the fears that have come forward as a result of COVID-19?
Well, we wouldn't go that, is unlikely. We won't quarantine people at quarantine points.
You can't. The center is no longer there.
All right. Well, actually, I think it was leprosy, but Dr. Martin,
yes,
it was leprosy, leprosy patients that would have been held there. But this is probably in the early part of the last century. And it would have, I'm not sure when, well, leprosy, basically by about the 60s, 70s, we weren't seeing many people with leprosy again. And I'm sure quarantine was probably open long before that, because I remember when it first came in the 70s, it was an active, it changed its entire function. But what would happen is if you got a significant number of patients falling ill, and you would have to quarantine some other area in the country, and some other facility would have to be designated to quarantine people, and that is necessary, obviously, to try to take control, just as we saw in China, which has been successful. I mean, it was drastic, but it's been successful. That they went in, they actually built hospitals. They built, as we all recognize, 1,000-bed hospitals. Yeah,
in the space of a week?
In the space of a week. I still don't understand it, but they did it. Yeah.
But you're speaking about quarantine, and Dr. Martin, we've been hearing about quarantining and quarantining. I want to know where these quarantine centers are. Please tell us.
It would be interesting for me to know how it would benefit anyone.
I would love to know. People are saying that sounds like some fairy tale pie in the sky idea.
It's not fairy tale, it's not pie in the sky. We have actually interviewed people who were quarantined, and that's the proof that it exists. But I don't know who benefits from knowing where the quarantine is.
Why is it not good for public knowledge?
Well, you tell me. What benefit
I would like to know if people are being quarantined, where are they being quarantined?
Who would that help?
In other words, you're not going to tell me. You're not going to tell the public.
Because I don't think who benefits from this?
The public benefits by reason of knowledge. Knowledge is power.
Okay.
No, but then what you could have is that people may want to go and prey on people and
yeah, this is what I'm saying. I don't know.
Will be
Quarantine Point was a public. It was well known that was Quarantine Point and what it was for when there was the outbreak of leprosy, no?
Yeah, there wasn't social media then either.
Oh, it's in the context of social media. Okay, so Dr. Martin, what is the quarantine capacity?
The quarantine capacity cannot be told, cannot be given. We don't even know what the capacity should be because we deal with it in the dynamics of how it occurs. Just as how the epidemiology of COVID virus changes, our plan and our response change depending on the need. So far we have been able to adequately provide for the needs that we have, and we see that adequacy going forward. We have also contemplated the possibility of mass quarantine, something I wish we never have to get to, but we have also have contingency plans in place for that as well.
People are saying that with what you call quote-unquote normal illnesses, the hospital or the healthcare system in Grenada can't cope.
Right.
What if? Can we cope? Can we test for COVID-19 in Grenada?
We are not able to test for COVID-19 in Grenada, but because we're approaching this with our regional partners, if a case shows up now, we have the ability to collect the samples here and ship them to CARFA in Trinidad, where the treatment, the test will be done for us. However, we, as a response, are moving quickly to be able to do our own testing. If everything goes well in collaboration with PAHO and the assistance they're giving to us, if everything goes really, really well in a very short space of time, probably a week or two, we should be able to do our own testing. And
there seems to be some level of panic out there. What is your word to the Grenadian public?
My word to the Grenadian public is that the science of the COVID virus, since it started and since I gave my very first public, explanation of the virus, the science continued to be consistent, that this is a virus that is not to be feared. This is a virus which the impact of which is manageable, the impact of which is in no way significant to the other public health threats that we've seen around the world. I understand the sensitivity of it, though, because it is a new virus. There's a lot of things we don't know about it. And that is the part that we should be worried about, the fact that there are so many unknowns. But in terms of the fear, there is a science that does not support the fear. There is a social impact and the fear-mongering that actually supports the fear. And so I continue to make that statement that while I know we will get it, while I know a lot of persons are going to be infected, and while I know the burden of illness is also something that we need to contemplate because we're going to have to deal with this. Overall, I believe that the vast majority of people who may contract the virus will recover without any complications.
But while you are saying so, the WHO, the officer in charge of that, is saying that we're entering uncharted territory. So if the WHO at that level is saying it's uncharted territory, there seems to be some uncertainty there.
Absolutely. There are some uncertainty, and healthcare experts around the world recognize that it's uncharted territory. But so far, we've had 3 months of the behavior of that virus, and 3 months we've been collecting data, and 3 months we've seen what the virus is doing internationally from China and expressing out to the world. Those 3 months of data and modeling and what we see helps us to get a good idea as to what is possible. And so we're seeing what is possible. There's a lot more to be learned, but so far, what we are seeing possible tells us that the science supports the fact that this virus is not something to be feared.
Dr. Brathwaite, we heard from Ambassador Abbie David a short while ago. There has been an online petition and a campaign saying, bring our students home. From your perspective, what's your take here?
Well, I don't think I can add much more than what Ambassador said, that, you know, they're trying, that it is a complex issue, and that they have looked at a number of possibilities. And I think I heard her say the students have gone back. They're back at school? Did I hear?
The schools have reopened.
Well, the schools have reopened. Well, I wasn't quite sure how that was working in terms of...
If you have a lockdown.
Lockdown, yeah, I wasn't sure. But nevertheless, seems as though, and none of the other CARICOM countries have pulled the students back home, and I just leave it to their judgment. That is, the students in conjunction with Ambassador David and government to make, the decision. But everyone is seemingly, it's a tough circumstance to ride out, to be locked down like that for it's over a month now. It's not easy, especially on young people who are accustomed to being up and around, and we all really empathize with what they would have gone through. But I sense that one of the issues is if they move back home, then there's a whole question to them about them getting back there, who's going to pay for it. So there are a number of things issues that they have to deal with.
Because I was wondering if it's the issue of cost, and I'm wondering, I hope I'm not misquoting you or probably misunderstood. Didn't you allude to attempts to bring the students back home recently on that program?
No, I did call on a program. I said that the CARICOM country had investigated the costs of bringing the students back home, which would have to be by a private charter, and that the charter was 1.1 million euros. Yeah.
But you did not allude to attempts by the Grenadian government to bring the students back home?
No,
Okay.
No, I didn't say it.
Mm-hmm. So, Dr. Martin, you had alluded to the whole issue of the cruise ship industry. Tourism, let's just say, for argument's sake, is the backbone of the Grenadian economy.
Right.
Right, it's one of the lead sectors. And so, are you caught between a rock and a hard place? Because you need the cruise industry dollars, but yet that is one of the main areas where we see a lot of the concern being registered.
Right. And again, this is where the science doesn't support the emotions. Because the cruise ship industry is a high-risk area. It's a lot of travelers confined to one space, and so the potential for easy spread of any infectious diseases is extremely high. Acute gastroenteritis and upper respiratory tract infection is extremely high. And it is for that reason the cruise ship industry goes through this very extensive process of ensuring that the health and safety of the members is maximum. And it is for that reason also that there are protocols and processes in place to alert countries about the health status of the travelers aboard those ships. We call those the nautical health declaration forms that the ship masters or the doctors aboard the ship would fill out to indicate what the nature of the state of health of the passengers are. We get those health declaration forms days ahead and repeat hours ahead before the ship come. So it is a genuine place to be concerned, especially in upper respiratory tract infections. So I am happy with that. I'm happy with us being concerned. I'm happy with us ensuring and looking at the ships and looking at the processes and so on. However, again, the science is very clear that up to this point, there has not been one COVID virus confirmed cases of any of the ships that came here to the Caribbean. There are situations where there have been gastroenteritis outbreak on the ship, and we dealt with it as appropriately because there were gastroenteritis outbreak. There were also issues of whether or not there were the ship provided those documents on time, or whether or not there were consistencies in between how they portrayed the health situations and what the port health office actually found when they went on the ship. All of these inconsistencies were very concerning to us as public health experts, and hence the reason for the ship.
But are Caribbean islands gullible? And I'm asking the question within the context of what we saw happened in Asia. There was this cruise ship going from bow to stern, port to port, and nobody would accept that cruise ship.
Right.
In Grenada, in the Caribbean, it seems as though it's free for all. We have a Caribbean Prime Minister going on board and saying, "We are so happy to welcome you to our beautiful shores." Are we being...
I wouldn't want to comment on that. I just stick with the science. I stick with the health aspect of it.
But at the end of the day, Dr. Martin, to fall back into your lap, we're dealing with the science, yes, but sometimes does common sense have to prevail?
Yes, common sense must prevail, but common sense must be guided by truthfulness and must be guided by honesty. because that is what is going to exonerate you at the end. We cannot always go by emotions or what people feel. We are living in a situation now where we've gone past the days where people just say things and believe it to be gospel. These days we want the facts. We want to be able to see what happens, because at the end of the day, what matters to me is the health of the nation must be important. And let's be very certain, untruthfulness and fear in itself can be a disaster for the health of the nation. And I think you understand what I mean. We have to be able to depend on the truthfulness of the science for us to decide what we want to do. I gave Cheif as an example. When I was explaining to the nation what's going to happen if we don't take care of our surroundings and get rid of the mosquito, that is what the science said. But people chose not to believe the science. They chose to believe in the fear-mongering and the conspiracy theories. And you saw what happened. That false information led to a devastating effects of the Cheif on our nation. And hence I'm saying common sense and concerns must be well placed, because if they are well placed and they use the science available to them, we're going to have the best outcome.
Dr. Martin, I'll take you up after the commercial break. Some Grenadians will say, well, what's wrong with Dr. Martin? I cleaned up my surroundings, I covered the water. How does he mean that I did not respond and I just fear-mongered? We will follow up with Dr. Martin on that point after the commercial break. Do stay with us on Beyond the Headlines.
Beautiful.
One of the world's largest oil companies with a top quality line of lubricants. Total Lubricants has a full product line from passenger cars, motorcycle, heavy industrial equipment, mining, trucking, agriculture, and manufacturing machines and vehicles. Total Lubricants, winning championships in motorsports, including Formula One and World Rally Championships. Total Lubricants are available at all Rubis service stations, leading automotive shops, and distributed by Huggins.
How going on, boy?
Hey, good old things.
Hey, Daisy.
Yeah.
Boy, in line, boy. Your house looking a real good day.
Boy, it's thanks to the hard-working and professional staff at the Housing Authority of Grenada. They handled me real nice. They did my plan, they did the construction, and I didn't even have to worry about a thing. They were there with me every step of the way, supervising the job, asking me about my concerns, giving me feedback as the house took shape. They were there from start to finish, and even put the keys in the palm of my hand. I give them an A++ for customer service.
Oh, it's people from housing bad, boy.
Boy, not bad. Excellent. If you're thinking about constructing your home, why not consult the Housing Authority of Grenada? You could visit them right down in the Sandino complex, or give them a call, 440-1015 or 440-1016. Or check out their website, hag473.com. They go handle you. They go jog your blocks, they go draw your plan, they go tote your materials. Hey man, where you going? The Housing Authority of Grenada is your choice for affordable housing and a stress-free construction experience.
Why not stay in, turn off the alarm clock, and sleep some more on your perfect mattress from Quartz? For the widest range of mattresses from the world's best brands, the best value guaranteed. Shop today and let our sleep experts help you to decide on the best option to suit your needs. At Quartz, we don't just sell mattresses, we're offering you the best night's sleep. So, sleep in a little on your new mattress from Quartz. Quartz, bringing value home.
welcome back to Beyond the Headlines. Our panelists this evening, the Acting Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Francis Martin, to my immediate left, and Dr. Bert Brathwaite, representing the committee dealing with COVID-19. And earlier in the program, we did speak via Skype with Grenada's ambassador to China, Ambassador Abbie David. Gentlemen, so there has been a lot of talk about fear-mongering and dealing with the science. And whereas what probably is being manifested looks as though it's people just being fearful. Can we break that word down to being concerned? You were saying that when you spoke to people about chikungunya, that people didn't listen. Is that really true?
Well, I was speaking in very general terms, but in terms of whether or not fear-mongering can be looked at as just being fearful, some of the things that I've heard and seen, it wasn't about being fearful. It was a deliberate effort to hurt people and to lie. People who know definitely that what they were saying is not true and deliberately said it. Because when people are genuinely fearful about medical issues, there is a way they deal with it. There is a way they ask questions. As a physician and a practicing physician, I get asked those questions every single day. For the last 18 years, I've been asked questions about health issues when they are fearful. So I have a fair understanding how people ask questions when they are genuinely fearful about something. And then again, I've had people ask me questions who just simply want to dig holes in something. So there are these different sides of the aisle. So I'm pretty sure I can spot one from far off.
We can go on for the rest of the night about that, but let me just lay down there a little bit, said Dr. Martin. Let's deal with the issue of stockpiling.
Right. Stockpiling, it's a major issue, and it's really affecting countries' ability to secure and procure adequate resources and adequate supplies for it. Granted, the World Health Organization has now recognized that there is really a market breakdown for the supplies that are necessary for this. And it is for this reason we have to collaborate with our regional partners. CARFA and PAHO are very significant partners who are helping us with this response. We have enough of our resources to begin mounting a response in the event that we do get the virus. However, we are continuing our efforts and continuing with our partners to be able to procure more of what we would need. We certainly have enough to begin. But because we don't know what the full burden of the illness is going to be, we are going to work with PAHO to ensure that we have enough.
PAHO, CARFA, and some of the other regional organizations met yesterday. Dr. Brathwaite, how is some of what was discussed feeding into the local committee?
Well, I was actually not involved in those particular discussions, but I mean, I know the work of PAHO generally. And to add to what Dr. said about the supplies, I think that's one of the worrying areas. If we just got a few patients coming down with it, I've seen the stock numbers that we have, and we obviously have quotas that we can get to work on it. But if we got a moderate or extensive number of people becoming ill, and we had to call on quick additional supplies, that's a big concern of ours. And where you would turn to, it would mean that we would have to start to look carefully at how we utilize what supplies we have, and we probably will have to do that from the beginning. So, yes, CARFA, PAHO will come in and bring in, help us to get supplies, but every part of the world, we see how it's extended. What, 60 countries now?
66 countries
66 countries, right. And it's only a matter of time before it reaches just about every continent. Some of the more populous areas, it hasn't reached into India in any significant way, into significant parts of Africa, etc. And so the demands, if you should tell them about the problem that you face with the supplies that we ordered since last year, supplies ordered and can't get them. And what's happened with the cost?
Yeah, I mean, we were in the process of ordering, I think it was 1,500 in the morning. And by 3 o'clock the afternoon, we got a call and say, okay, we can't get 1,500, we can get 300, but it will cost you $110,000 to get it.
Dr. Brathwaite was speaking about CARFA, and at the CARICOM level, yesterday there was a meeting in Barbados, and the CARICOM chairman did address the matter, and we have a report that was filed for the nightly television news by GBN's Rena Pear, looking at the regional response. In Trinidad and Tobago, they said that they're preparing for the worst, but they're hoping for the best. And I guess that's the mode that most Caribbean countries are in, trying to be prepared, but hoping against all hope that we are not impacted at all, or if we are, at a minimal level. So let's listen to some of the comments made, some of the issues that came up at yesterday's meeting in that report filed by GBN's Rena Pear.
The meeting brought together some heads of government, Caribbean ministers of health, and their chief medical officers. Other stakeholders included representatives from the Pan American Health Organization, the Caribbean Public Health Agency, the Caribbean Community Implementation Agency for Crime and Security, the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency, and the cruise ship industry. It aimed to chart the way forward on tackling COVID-19 in the Caribbean, as CARPHA has recently upgraded the risk of the coronavirus transmission from low to moderate to high for Caribbean countries. Chair of CARICOM, Prime Minister Mia Mottley, said CARICOM is seeking resources from stakeholders to wrestle the virus.
As a result of the conversation, one of the things that we did was to establish a framework for an expanded Bureau of Heads of Government to be able to immediately work to see how we can marshal the resources that will be necessary, whether from our partners in the travel and tourism industry, from our partners in the international financial institutions or regional financial institutions, or our local and regional private sector, in order to be able to increase our capacity to contain and manage any outbreak.
Motley said the Caribbean community will continue to be directed by WHO and PAHO in protecting the region while still maintaining its economy.
We will continue to be guided by the science and the medical officials in this matter so that we can at all times protect the health of our citizens and all visiting our territories, while at the same time protect the economic stability of our region and our countries.
Chairman of the Caribbean Council for Human and Social Development, Minister Mervyn Joseph, spoke of the commitment made by the cruise ship industry in working along with CARICOM in preventing the spread of COVID-19.
I'm particularly pleased with the commitment of the cruise industry to maintain a clear line of communication and to ensure that one critical aspect of managing this risk, and that is to ensure that pre-boarding screening is done in a very extensive and effective way. This type of information will assist not only tourism but the ministries of health to be able to make speedy decisions that will not delay the execution of the ships entering the port and departing as well.
The meeting was held on Sunday in Barbados. For GBN News, I am Rena.
Thank you so much, Rena Pear, for that report. Dr. Martin, you were smiling for a little bit. I saw the smile when the word science was used. Somebody's asking on social media whether the comment made by the Barbadian Prime Minister, the CARICOM chair, is amounting to us being penny-wise and pound-foolish, because we want to protect the economies, but yet we have a sort of open sepulchre kind of situation where we want the tourist dollars. So we're not going to tell the ships to stay away, especially the Barbados economy at this point. I'm not pointing any fingers because we know that we're all CARICOM nations, but yet we probably, by accident, was born somewhere else and live somewhere else. Yes, Dr. Brathwaite?
I think it's a fair concern because, and it feeds into my mantra of primary healthcare, which actually speaks to prevention rather than cure. Because if you want to focus on cure, you're actually being penny-wise and pound-foolish, because it costs less to prevent diseases than to actually treat diseases. So it is a genuine concern that the region has to contemplate. But we don't live in a vacuum, so there's a lot more things that the region has to contemplate, and this is why, as healthcare providers, we have to assess the situation every day and make decisions on a daily basis?
Let me say, I think what has happened so far from, although I have not been in the belly of any discussions, we found the right balance. The question is, you've got a situation where potentially you can import an infectious person into the island, and that can cause problems. But on the other hand, clearly you still have to, if we close down the cruise industry, if you had to, you would do it, but you don't rush to do that unless it becomes, you have no other alternative. You try to safeguard the country, which is what I think the Prime Minister and others in that meeting would have done, and the conclusions they came to left us with still some. They made sure they held the tourism, the cruise industry responsible, and to ensure that, for instance, that they give correct data to the home ports as to what is happening on the boards, etc., and also help to support in any way some measures that might be needed in various situations, various islands. But on the other hand, they still allow the cruise tourism to continue, because, you know, if we lose our cruise tourism, then the very funds you're going to need. Let me say this. Irrespective of what we do, as Dr. Wood have said, we were in a containment mode before. We now in a mitigation. The virus is around. You see what is happening? Let's use examples of what is happening in the United States. They have now discovered that the scientists are saying, that indeed, in fact, the virus has been out there probably in circulation in some parts for 3 weeks. 9 chances out of 10, we have some measure of it here, hasn't manifested as yet.
Have you heard that it has been created as a weapon of mass destruction?
I've heard that, and I don't lend any credence to that, because nations are not stupid. If you go and you get into biological warfare, and irrespective of the nature and you try to spread something like that, it's going to come back to you.
Dr. Martin I heard Dr. Martin sighing here. He's like, he's getting impatient with Ms. Campbell for putting these things out there. I apologize, but it's what is out there.
No, it is true. The conspiracy theories have always been there. I recall the year of my graduation, year 2000. That was a conspiracy theory. The first thing I was faced with was HIV. It was so there's always conspiracy theories, and unfortunately, the way the world works, there are reasons why these conspiracy theories are there. But I rather deal with, you know, the facts as they. Let
me finish.
Dr. Brathwaite, I want to take we need to take a commercial break, but we were going on the whole issue of pre-board screening, as alluded to in the report on the CARICOM meeting. And Dr. Martin, people are asking, for instance, those Italians that were here, and then people say, we let them go. Weren't you putting people probably at risk because they did not fulfill the full 14 days and you send them out on a flight? And I'm using the phrase loosely. Please forgive me. I don't mean you, Dr. Martin. Grenada allowed them to go. Was that in keeping with the protocol?
Well, you have to look at, you want to talk about it before the break, right?
Okay, it seems as though you want some time to think about it. We'll
No, I don't have
3 minutes to think about it. We will take a commercial break and we'll come right back. When we come back, we will entertain your calls and some of the comments being made on our social media platform. Stay with us on Beyond the Headlines.
It's the big one. Grenada. Imagine winning $25,000 and up to 6 times by scratching just one little ticket. Get your triple cash scratch tickets for a chance to live your best life. Win easy with Scratch. For just $3, match any of your numbers to any of the winning numbers and win the prize shown for that number. Reveal a money back symbol and win the prize instantly. Triple cash scratch in stores now. Must be 18 or older to play.
'Cause I'm a winner. From the moment that I get up, I'm feeling right. A pleasant evening to everyone. Welcome to the National Lotteries Authority's Lotto Draw number 3068 for today, Monday, March 2nd, 2020. I am Anisha Charles. With me this evening is Ms. Priscilla Barry from PKF Accountants and Business Advisors, whose purpose is to ensure that this show is conducted in an accountable manner with the game balls with industry standards and in a way stamped with. This evening we're playing for a jackpot of $146,000. Prepare for your winning number. Good luck. This evening's free ticket letter is A, as in advantage. Let's proceed for your 5 winning numbers. Good luck. First number this evening is, check the tickets in the meantime. First number up is 10, second number. Second number is 3, third number up. Third number is 32, followed by number is 28, fifth and final number. Final number is 34. Let's recap those numbers. Check your tickets. First number for this evening is 10. The second, 3. Third, 32, followed by 28. Fifth and final is 34. So that's 10, 10, 033, 32, 32, 28, 28, and 34, 34. Your free ticket letter for this evening is A, as an advantage. Congratulations to all the winners of this evening's Lotto Draw. Lotto, play and win a lot. When you play all the games of the National Lotteries Authority, support sports, culture, and the nation building. Thanks for joining us. Have a wonderful evening.
More jackpot money, more reasons to play this game. More money for way, Super 6 a bigger jackpot game.
Now you love Super 6 even more. With more money to the jackpot galore. Play more, win more, have more fun. With more jackpot money, Super 6 is my number one. With the new and improved Super 6 game, jackpot keep growing and growing and growing.
More jackpot money, more reasons to play this game. More money for way, Super 6 a bigger jackpot game. Super 6, bigger jackpots, more chances to win.
Get Rubigas. Get cooking. Rubigas, clean, safe, and reliable LPG is the perfect solution for your commercial and everyday needs. For cooking at home or barbecuing, choose Rubigas LPG cylinders. Available in a variety of sizes from 20 to 100 pound cylinders. Rubigas LPG, clean, safe, reliable. Are you cooking with Rubigas?
Get Rubis, get going.
It's what's inside that counts. Inside your house, that is. With Beacon, you can ensure everything inside your home with our Easy Buy contents packages. Just click, match, and buy for maximum peace of mind. Minimum fuss. Log on to beacon.co.tt and choose your package today.
In quarantine. Welcome back to Beyond the Headlines, and we are looking at COVID-19, the Caribbean braces. In case you joined us late, our panelists tonight, Chief Medical Officer Dr. Francis Martin and Dr. Bert Brathwaite. He's representing the Sanitary Committee dealing with COVID-19. Dr. Martin, now that you've had your 3 minutes to think, people are asking about the circumstances surrounding 3 Italians who were put into quarantine but then left the country before the 14-day period was up.
Okay. Well, that's easy. That's really a no-brainer. First of all, it is important to recognize that my primary objective is to keep the country safe. And that's the primary objective. If there is an opportunity where someone has a potential for infecting or causing an outbreak in the country, that primary objective is to avoid that from happening. Secondly, it's very important to remember, and I need to say remember because people sometimes forget the simple things. You need to remember that the COVID virus is spread when someone has symptoms, when they have fever, coughing, and sneezing. People who are in quarantine, the mere reason they're in quarantine is because they do not have a fever, they do not have a cough, and they do not have sneezing. That's why they are quarantined. If they had a fever, cough, or a sneeze, they would be isolated because now they would have to get treatment, test, of course, and treatment. So the primary thing is at the point in time when these persons or any person from any nationality that is under our watch, whenever they approach our shores, if they have any symptoms at all, they would not be put into quarantine, they'll put into isolation. The fact that they're in quarantine means that they have no symptoms.
So why did you put those 3 Italians? And please forgive me, I don't mean you, Dr. Martin.
I understand the process.
Why were they put into quarantine?
Because they had no symptoms whatsoever, but they came from an area where they may have been exposed. So that reached, according to our protocol, they are going to be in quarantine. However, they are free individuals and they can leave our country if they want to. As a matter of fact, if they leave our country, it's less burden for us anyway. And the airline industry and I mean, they have protocols that they follow, and they follow those protocols. I was told that the pilot was aware of it, and he, activated his own protocol. And because he knows that this is normal procedure, he allowed them on board and let them go. So it is not something that is new to infectious disease or new to this sort of area.
Let's go to the quarantine center. So these 3 Italians, and we're just using them as a case study, point of reference, right? Anybody, 3 Germans, 3 Grenadians, 3 Frenchmen, 3 whatever.
Right.
They're put into quarantine. At the quarantine center, are they free to move about, probably go to the supermarket to get supplies? What is the protocol?
The protocol is that they're supposed to avoid circulating in the population for 14 days. I must say, however, I don't know if it is because of some act of divine intervention, but we have been very fortunate that we have had persons in quarantine who, first of all, understood what was going on. It was never a matter of them not knowing why we're doing what we're doing. And so that made our job quite easy. I don't know how long it's going to be like that. So the idea of them collaborating with us and cooperating with us has been extremely well. We know that there are security matters, and we have taken those matters into consideration. We are in close communications with the Royal Grenada Police Force and ASP Prince, and we have been doing what we have to do. So far, we've had very good response, very good results, and we hope that this can continue for the foreseeable future.
But the question is, at those quarantine centers, do you have a security guard who will tell this person, you can't go to the supermarket, you can't leave?
Well, let's keep that under wraps for now. We have our procedures.
But why, Dr. Martin? We want to know. We want you don't want me to live in fear, but you're not giving me answers.
I'm giving you answers that we are following our protocols, and we're following all procedures we need to follow to ensure that everybody is safe.
Do you have a security guard at the center, Dr. Martin?
Next, you're going to ask me what is a security company, wouldn't you?
No. I just want to be assured that there are protocols.
Yes, be assured.
Did these 3 Italians just break out of the center and rush to the airport? I want to know how that transpired. Did they seek permission, indicate, and the Ministry of Health said, according to the protocols, yes, you can leave? These are the steps to be followed?
No, we followed the right protocol. As a matter of fact, we made sure that we personally took them to where they needed to go in a safe way.
On this note, we have a caller on the line. Caller, good evening and welcome.
Yes, good evening. Greetings. Greetings, Doc. Listen, my question is to the point. Can you tell us how long, I say, that interval between the collection of a sample from an isolated person and the return, in other words, the return of the results of the test? Can you give us an idea of the interval of time? I understand it's not being done here, but I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the call. And that's an extremely important question he asked, because while we were developing our response, the smaller islands, we discussed that we can do our sample collection on island and testing in CARFA. But there we realized that there's a logistical problem, because if you take a sample on Friday, do you wait until the weekend for your results to come back on Monday? And it is for that reason we've made the decision, and supported by our PS and supported by our system, that we are going to seek measures to do our own testing on island. When that happens, the results will be back in 4 hours.
Good. We have another call on the line. Caller, good evening.
Good evening. I would like to ask a few questions. I'll make it them brief. Now, how many are you all prepared with enough, or do you have enough doctors ready should in case an outbreak take place in Grenada, whether 20, 30, 40? And at the same time, do you have enough nurses? Because a few months back or a few weeks back, nurses were leaving the country like mosquitoes. They're going one after the other. Two, I want to know if you are not afraid, because doctors are dying abroad, where you have more medical expertise. I'm not saying we don't have good ones down here, you know. Are you afraid that if you take the blunt of the assault, as you are the head, you are likely to die? And a young man, do you wish to die now? I'm an old man, so I'm still scared. So I look at these things as serious.
Caller, thank you so much for your contribution, Dr. Martin.
Yes, he asked whether or not we have enough healthcare providers, and then he asked whether or not we're going to die from the disease as well. So let me answer this. Every single year after festive season, we have a disease outbreak, a flu outbreak, every single year. This is going to be another outbreak. At Cheif, we had basically an outbreak of Cheif. We have had enough healthcare providers to take care of this. But what is really fortunate about this particular disease is that, as I said before, 80% of those infected will have mild symptoms. And mild symptoms meaning that mild cough and cold, mild fever, which means that many of them don't even need to go to see the doctor physically. You can call your physician so that you don't have to. We're going to be opening flu clinics as well to help with that sort of thing. Our issue is whether or not the severe cases or this very severe cases, how we're going to deal with the very severe cases. And that's really where the crux of the matter is. So the answer to the question is, by and large, for the 80% who are going to be mild, we can handle this. The question is, if everybody gets very, very ill, well, obviously we will not be able to deal with this. His second question regarding whether doctors are dying, the caller has to remember that the deaths from healthcare providers were very early, when we didn't know yet that they were human-to-human transmission. And that's when they were exposed to a super dose of the virus, and that overwhelmed the immune system.
Let me also add that
sorry, Doc. Just let me take another caller, sure. Because sometimes we tell people we want to hear from them, and then just let me take another caller and we come back to you. Caller, good evening and welcome. Hello? Yes, please. Yes, please.
Just a little bit of observation. As an aside first, though, don't continually say would have meaning that you did, and don't continually say speak to this and speak to that. You only speak to people Anyway,
thank you for the grammatical corrections. And let's get to the meat of the matter, because we only have like 10 minutes. But thank you sincerely.
What I'm thinking, the notion that I shouldn't fear is a strange one. You must be afraid of the unknown. I am afraid of the unknown. I am not panicky. But to tell me there is nothing to fear is ridiculous. For the good reason that my father dies, my mother dies, my mother-in-law, me, I fear what I die, and I wouldn't be bothered about that. People die, I am afraid of that. Even though it's one of us on me, that it just may be somebody that I am close to. So I'm afraid of that. And don't tell me it is not as dangerous. I know of absolutely no one, and I know people throughout my life have the flu. I never know of anyone who died from the flu. So don't tell me how much more dangerous it is, the flu is, than this virus we have going on. I want to give somebody a chance, so I'll make it short. Bye.
Thank you so much. We do appreciate it. Dr. Brathwaite,
I was making a point about the previous caller asked about Dr. Martin, and just to say to the gentleman that it would not be recommended that Dr. Martin, as Chief Medical Officer, go in the forefront of the fight with ill patients, because he has a particular role in a setting like this, and it's a very important and serious role. So there are other doctors who will have to go in to do that. The other thing I want to point out to the caller is that this virus is affecting, and the majority of people who are running into problems are in the older age groups. If you're 80 plus, it's much more significant when you're 60 to 80. But when you're below 60, which the majority of the doctors in the hospital will be, unless they had underlying medical issues, and provided they're very meticulous about how they don and doff they wear, there should be very little risk. And great efforts are being made to ensure that is the case. And as a matter of fact, we have to encourage them to be in the forefront of the fight.
We have another caller on the line. Caller, good evening. Did we lose a caller? Caller, are you there? Hello? Yes, please, go ahead.
Hello?
Yes, please.
Yes, good evening. I would like to find out if this
Okay,
virus...
so caller, if you are to continue, like we've preached for 20 years, you need to turn your television set or your radio down. Okay, so caller, are you ready to make a contribution now?
If this virus is basically attached to the lung. Yes, yes.
Okay, so caller, we'd have to get back to you because we're still hearing the reverb in the studio. Dr. Martin, you wanted to make a point?
In relation to the last caller, the caller is ill-informed that the flu doesn't kill anybody. In the last 6 months, in the United States only United States, 10,000, sorry, I was corrected, I think it was 30,000 people died from flu, the influenza. Just our neighbors, 40-something people died from the flu, influenza. Even in Grenada, we've had increased deaths, so epidemiologists have shown increased deaths from flu or influenza in the end of 2019. So the caller is probably ill-informed.
Good. And we have another caller, Doc. Mm-hmm. Good evening and welcome.
Hi, good evening, Mr. Campbell, and good evening to the doctors there. This is a very serious matter, and everything we're being told, don't worry, don't worry. The question was asked just now, what if we have an outbreak? And Dr. Martin's response was, for the 80%, it should be easy, but if we have a number who have severe conditions, that will be a different matter. That doesn't answer the question. Everything seems to be a mystery. In Barbados, the Prime Minister clearly said yesterday, what are the mitigation plans? She spoke of identifying a location, equipping it, preparing people, training them, but everything here seems to be shrouded in mystery. And this is where the anxiety comes from. Finally, it is 20 times more deadly than the flu. The seasonal flu, the death rate is about 0.095%, less than 1/10.
So caller, what is your question?
The mortality rate here is at least 2%.
Hello, caller, can you tell us what your question is?
So it's not a comic show. Thank you.
Okay, let me answer the caller. The caller is right in that the flu, the influenza that we normally get, as compared with this, the death rate, if you take 1,000 people, one person would die in a normal flu season. In this, with this COVID-19 virus, 20 people out of 1,000, so it's 20 times more. But that 2% figure is mainly from the epicenter. If you come outside of the epicenter, even in China, the figure is much less. You're talking about more like 5 out of, in the case of China, 7 out of 1,000 people who are dying, which is a third of that higher number. And my own feel, looking around with what is happening internationally, is that we will finish up with more people dying, and mostly in the older age group, and mostly with people with chronic problems. But it will not be as massive as the 20 in 1,000, perhaps more like 5 in 1,000, 5 times more than we normally see.
Thank you.
This is, of course, very concerning, and nobody wants to see a single death. But this is what we have to prepare, and what we are wrapping our minds around in terms of setting up the systems. And for the caller as well, we are setting up systems. There's been training ongoing. We are doubling that, and tomorrow perhaps you will hear of additional measures we are taking to set have things in some degree of readiness as far as our system allows.
Good. We have another caller on the line. Caller, good evening. It's great to have you with us.
Good night, Mr. Campbell, and good night to the two doctors. I want to first of all say that I am satisfied that we are getting clearly enough information. We will always have fear. Fear will always be there. Once you hear about people dying and whatnot, there is fear. But my thing is that the kind of message that goes out there, when people tell you that a plane came in with 200 persons on it, 200 Chinese on it, you know, knowing fully well that that was not true. I think these are the people that are raising our fear more, right? Because I accept and agree that we will have fear and we cannot stop the fear. Because once you hear about death, nobody wants to die. But when we get those kind of information, we are left in more fear. But I am satisfied that all is being done where you can't finish educate people and that. But I think a lot is being done to help to combat this disease that is coming.
Thank you so much, caller. Dr. Martin, before the program ends, we'd like to ask you, for instance, what can people or should people stock up on? The scenario there is that if you get to a place like where the students in China, the Grenadian students, are under lockdown, if it comes to a situation where there's a lockdown placed on Grenada, in advance, what should people be doing now? What sort of items you want people to stock up on? You understand that all of the face masks have been sold out, but we've also heard that they're not effective. So take us through those ropes, please.
Right, and I'm glad you asked this because we need to start behaving as though the virus is here. We need to start behaving like that now. The evidence suggests that mask wearing or face mask in the general public is not effective, and so it is not necessary for that to do. But I think what people need to do is work on what to do to prevent yourself from getting the virus. Too many times we focus on what would the hospital do for me, or what would the ministry do for me, and not enough focus on what you can do to protect yourself. It is important that people eat the bright-colored foods. Yes, we know you have to stock up on your hand sanitizers and your soap and water so you can wash your hands, because that has been the major way of preventing this transmission from one person to the next. Do not cough in people's face. Stay 3 meters away from one another. Get your hand sanitizers and so on. But maybe the more important thing is what do you do with your body from now until the virus hits? What's your diet like? It is very clear. The medicine is very clear that the bright-colored foods are the ones that will prevent you from getting the virus. So if people change the diet, eat bright-colored foods, the red, orange, yellow, green, the mauve, whatever it is, and get enough water, drink enough water, get enough sleep, that gives your immune system the energy it needs to fight this virus. So if you do this, and then you practice your hand hygiene and your cough hygiene, that would significantly reduce the rate of transmission of the virus. And so that's the advice I would give to people at this point in time.
At the home level, do you suggest that people stock up on cough and cold medicines and probably go to the supermarket and get dry? Because I saw this advisory somewhere today where they're saying to people, you know, you should stock up on your cough and cold medicines and also probably get dry stuff and canned stuff.
I think it's going to help. Yes, I think it's going to help because the advice we're giving to people, if you see you have flu symptoms, do not leave your house. Call your physician from there. And so being able to have those things at home would only assist in the process. I think it's a good idea to stock up on some things to keep you in case you need to stay at home.
Okay. We're getting ready to wrap up. Dr. Brathwaite, is there anything that you want to...
I just want to reinforce what Dr. Martin just previously said, and that is a lot of this is going to be about what shape our body is in. If we have been looking after our health, if we've been eating correctly, as he said, if we've been out there exercising, if we've been not smoking, and the alcohol, right? Alcohol is an immune suppressant. So if you've been abusing alcohol, expect that there's a good chance that when if the bug passes your way, you're going to have a much more torrid time with it. So keep yourself, elderly people who are more restricted can't do anything in that respect. But for younger people, the world is open for you to be able to breeze through this virus.
Dr. Martin, there are some essential points that you think in 2 minutes you want to get out there.
The essential points is dealing, and to me right now, is talking to the hearts of people. I understand the need for, I understand the fear that people might feel from time to time. And sometimes fear is a good thing because it helps us to do what we need to do. But I am very clear from the beginning that the mass majority of people do not need to be fearful about this. The fear should be in the target population. The target population are people in their 60, 70, and 80 years old who have comorbid conditions like high blood pressure, diabetes, and so on. If you know you have a relative in your home that has diabetes and hypertension, try and focus on those persons, because those are the ones that if they get the virus, they may have a really difficult time with it. That's the fear factor. To my mind as well, the fear factor to me is how will our system respond if all of those persons, we don't know how it's going to respond, but we know it is a challenge for us. And so this is the genuine fear that I think we all should be concerned about. And so my last words are, let's all do what we have to do. It is very strange, but all of the public health threats that we've seen since 1960-something, all of those significant public health threats that has significantly interfered with our health in the world had all to do with hygiene. It has to do how well we clean ourselves, and the other part, how well we clean our surroundings. Just check it out. Almost all the public health threats, how well you clean your surroundings, how well you clean yourself. And that gets me concerned because people don't want to clean themselves. They don't want to clean their surroundings, so they find all other ways to blame for public health threats. Citizens, take care of yourself because your health is your responsibility.
And some people are questioning whether the hand sanitizers are really effective.
More than 60%. Between 60 and 70, 90% of alcohol. I have seen some with 30-something% of alcohol. So ensure that if you get a lower percentage, add some mentholated spirits in it. I personally prefer over 70% alcohol as a way of dealing with...
Because people don't understand, for instance, okay, so you have the hand sanitizer, you rub it in your hand and it stays in your hand. So is it that you've dissolved the germs in your hand and it stays there rather than washing your hand?
Kill the virus.
You kill the virus. The alcohol.
Very quickly kills the virus.
Yeah, alcohol kills viruses very quickly.
But you're saying it should be above 60?
Above 60%.
Kills that virus.
That particular virus.
It has to be above 60%.
Yeah, that particular virus.
So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, and to our young people who joined us tonight, we want to thank you so much for joining us for Beyond the Headlines. We have been looking at COVID-19, the Caribbean braces. We looked at the World Health Organization and some of what's been happening on the international scene. Our panelists tonight, Acting Chief Medical Officer Dr. Francis Martin, we want to thank you so much for having stopped by.
My pleasure.
And Dr. Bert Brathwaite, he's representing the Sanitary Committee responsible.
We still shake hands.
There's no quote. Okay, so we have to do this over. Instead of a bounce, I saw somebody doing on one. And earlier in the program, we were joined by Grenada's ambassador to China, Ambassador Abbie David. She has a hectic schedule. It is now 10 o'clock on Tuesday morning in China, so she has a busy schedule and could not stay with us for the entire program, and we want to thank her so much. We would like to thank the persons who worked behind the scenes to make tonight's program possible. We want to thank the Prime Minister's Press Secretary, Philomena Robertson, for having made the connection for us, and the entire News and Current Affairs team who worked to get this program off tonight. Special thanks. We want to say thanks to Chantamel Furniture Cooperative for our new furniture, Wagati Rental and Songs for assisting us with the new set layout and design, and the production staff headed by Darius Slocum. We have Renel on the outside, and we also have Kellon Batiste. Thank you guys so much. Thanks to everybody, and thanks to you, Grenada, Carrico, Petite Martinique, and wherever in the world you've been listening and watching. We know we have had a viewer out of New York, and we want to say thank you so much. And until next week, I'm Odette Campbell saying so long for now. We'll be here again next Monday. Again, gentlemen, the handshake. We close it with the handshake.